My name is Thomas Crane. I am 65 years old, and 3 days before my daughter's wedding I was asked, very politely, not to use the front door. I was sitting on the front porch of the Whitlock Avenue house when the call came. Carol's gardenia bush beside the steps was still blooming in the October cold, the way it did every year past the point it should have stopped. I held the phone against my ear and listened to Sasha's voice drop half a register, the way it had since she was 9 years old and had something difficult to tell me. What Elaine Whitmore had never thought to ask was whose name was on the contract. Welcome back to Dad's True Revenge, where the steadiest hand wins every time. If you've ever been overlooked by people who should have seen you first, this story is for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You're going to love it here. My name is Thomas Crane. I spent 31 years as a family attorney in Marietta, Georgia, operating Crane and Associates out of a 2-room office on Atlanta Street 3 blocks from the courthouse. I retired 14 months ago. I live in the same house on Whitlock Avenue in the historic district that Carol and I bought in 1989. The year Sasha was born, the year we thought we were just beginning. The house has a wide front porch and a live oak in the side yard that has grown considerably wider than the city's arborist recommended when he came out in 2014. I never had it trimmed. Carol had liked the way it shaded the dining room window in July. Carol passed 6 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 14 months from diagnosis to the end. I drove her to chemotherapy every Tuesday and Thursday for 11 of those months, billing my firm a half rate during those weeks so I could keep the caseload manageable without turning clients away. I did not mention the billing adjustment to anyone at the firm. It was not their concern. When she passed, I kept the house exactly as it was for the first year, and then I began, slowly, to adjust the small things, the coffee cup on the wrong hook, the calendar on the wrong wall, while leaving the larger ones alone. The gardenia bush was hers. I watered it. Sasha was 32 when she met Brendan Whitmore at a conference in Atlanta. He was pleasant enough in person, measured, careful in his speech, the kind of man who listens with visible attention in a way that looks like genuine interest until you realize the attention is a professional habit. His family was from Roswell. His mother, Elaine, was the kind of woman who assessed a room within 45 seconds of entering it and spent the remainder of her time confirming what she had already decided. I met Elaine Whitmore for the first time at a dinner in Roswell on July 11th. I drove the 4 hours round trip because Sasha had asked and I had not wanted her to feel alone at a table of people she was still learning. The Whitmore house was large in a way that announces itself before you are parked. Elaine greeted us at the door with both hands extended and a warmth that I recognized after 31 years of family law as the kind that is performing rather than feeling. She looked at me twice at dinner, once when I arrived, once when the question of what I did came up, and after that she addressed most of her remarks to Sasha. My throat tightened when she spoke, past me to Brendan about the wedding venue. I kept my expression level. The venue was my idea, or rather, the payment was mine. Sasha had called me 3 days after Brendan proposed, her voice bright and slightly unsteady with the largeness of it, and she had mentioned the Whitfield House in passing, the old event venue on Kennesaw Avenue, as something she had always imagined but assumed was beyond the budget. I did not tell her I knew the venue. I had handled the estate contract for the family that originally owned the property. I called the venue manager the following morning and made the deposit, $18,500, before any conversation about division of costs had occurred. The contract for the Whitfield House was signed on September 4th by me under my LLC, Crane Family Holdings. My name, my signature, Martin Callis, the contract officer, had witnessed the signing and kept a copy on file. I filed my copy in a manila folder in the second drawer of my home office desk, where I kept every contract I had ever signed and thought nothing more about it. I drove 3 Saturdays in September helping Sasha and Brendan move furniture into the new house in Kennesaw. I drove my truck because the rental quote had been $340 and I had a truck. I did not mention the deposit on the Whitfield House during those Saturdays. I did not mention it when Elaine Whitmore began organizing the wedding plans through her own event coordinator. I did not mention it when the seating chart came back with my name at a table near the rear of the reception hall, behind the catering station. I kept my paperwork. I always had. 31 years in family law had made it a reflex, not out of suspicion, but out of the understanding that the details in the agreement matter most at exactly the moment no one wants to look at them. The call from Sasha came on a Tuesday evening, 3 days before the wedding at 7:14 p.m. I was on the front porch. The gardenia was catching the last of the light. I heard her voice drop when I answered, and I held the phone steady and waited. She said Brendan's family had some concerns. She said the immediate family photos were going to be structured around the Whitmore side, and that Elaine felt it would be cleaner. She said there was a service entrance on the north side of the Whitfield House that the caterers used, and that it would actually be very convenient for guests arriving separately. She said the words carefully, in a voice I recognized as not entirely her own. She said, "Dad, his family just feels like it might be awkward given. I don't know, it's complicated. And they'd really prefer the family photos to just reflect the Whitmore side. It's nothing personal." Something behind my sternum went very still. I said nothing. I looked at the gardenia bush. One of the blooms had gone brown at the edges, but had not yet fallen. Carol had always said gardenias were stubborn flowers. She had meant it as praise. Sasha said, "Dad, please don't make this hard." I didn't answer. I sat with that for a moment. The weight of it, the particular shape of being told that your presence at your own daughter's wedding needed to be managed through a side entrance because someone else's family found it inconvenient. My voice held. I said I understood. She said she was relieved. She said she knew I would understand. She said Brendan's mother had been under a lot of stress with the planning, and this was just how things were working out. She said she hoped I would still come, just through the north entrance, and perhaps wait until the formal photos were finished before entering the main hall. I said I had one question. She said, of course. I asked her whose name was on the venue contract. She was quiet for a long moment. I did not fill the silence. She said she assumed Elaine's coordinator had handled the contract. I said she might want to check on that. I said good night and put the phone down on the porch railing. I sat in the dark for a while. The oak tree in the side yard was making its slow sound in the October wind, the particular low creak of old wood settling its own weight. I had paid Sasha's undergraduate application fees and law school test prep. $4,200, the year Carol was in treatment, without mentioning the timing. I had covered the $22,000 apartment deposit the same afternoon she called, wiring it before she had finished explaining what had happened with the co-signer. I had kept 32 birthday cards in a shoebox on the closet shelf because I had never been able to throw away anything she had made with her hands. And I had paid $18,500 to put her at a venue she had always imagined and then filed the paperwork in the second drawer and never mention it, because that was how I understood the job. My shoulders dropped, just once, just slightly. Then I went inside and went to my desk. At 9:41 the following morning, I called Patricia Osei, the venue manager at the Whitfield House, and asked her to pull the contract for the October 14th booking. She confirmed my name as sole contracting party within 4 minutes. I asked to confirm the access rights clause, the standard language in all Whitfield House contracts specifying that the contracting party retains right of access to all areas of the venue for the duration of the event. She read it back to me. I thanked her. At 10:03 a.m., I called Leonard Aldis, my former paralegal of 19 years, who now ran his own contract review service on Church Street. I read him the access rights clause language. He said, without hesitation, that the contracting party's right of access superseded any third-party request for modified access, and that no event venue could legally restrict the contracting party to a service entrance without written amendment signed by that party. He said, "Tom, if your name is on that contract, you walk to the front door." I thanked him. He asked how Sasha was. I said she was getting married in 3 days. At 2:17 that afternoon, Elaine Whitmore's event coordinator called my cell phone. Her name was Rebecca, and she spoke in a professionally cheerful tone of someone who had been given a task she found mildly uncomfortable. She said she was confirming the guest logistics for the Crane party, and that there was an arrangement for separate arrival, and that the north entrance would be clearly marked. I said I appreciate her call. I said I would be arriving through the main entrance at 8:22 in the morning on the day of the wedding, per the terms of the venue contract. She paused. I kept my face neutral. She said she would need to check with the family on that. I said that was fine. I said the contract was on file with Patricia Osei, and I was happy for anyone to review it. She said she would be in touch. I let that settle. She was not in touch. Brendan left a voicemail at 6:48 that evening, measured, careful, his professional listening voice transposed into a diplomatic register. He said there had been a misunderstanding, and he was sure it could be resolved. He said his mother was just trying to make things run smoothly. He said he hoped we could keep things calm. I listened to the voicemail twice. My stomach turned at the particular gentleness of it. The way a man sounds when he is delivering his mother's position in his own voice and hoping no one notices the seam. I kept my face still. I did not return the call. I put the contract folder on the passenger seat of the truck that night and drove once past the Whitfield House on Kennesaw Avenue. The building was lit from the outside, white stone and tall windows, the kind of venue that looked like it had always been there and always would be. The main entrance had 2 oak doors with iron handles, wide enough for a wedding party, wide enough for a father. I drove home. I went to bed at 10:19. On October 14th, I arrived at the Whitfield House at 8:22 in the morning. I was wearing the charcoal suit I had worn to every significant event of the past decade: Carol's memorial, Sasha's law school graduation, 3 partner dinners at the firm. I parked in the main lot. I took the contract folder from the passenger seat out of habit. I did not need it. My hands went still on the steering wheel for a moment before I opened the door. Patricia Osei met me in the lobby at 8:30. She was a small, direct woman with reading glasses on a beaded chain and the manner of someone who had managed events long enough to have seen every variety of family complication. She confirmed the contract verbally. My name, my LLC, sole contracting party, main entrance access for the duration. She said in the even tone of someone stating a fact that has never been in dispute. I thanked her. She said, "Mr. Crane, enjoy your daughter's wedding." I said I intended to. I was in the main hall when the Whitmore family arrived at 9:47. Elaine came to the main entrance at 9:52 with the coordinator and 2 of Brendan's sisters. She stopped when she saw me. Her face went through something I recognized from 31 years of deposition rooms. The particular stillness of a person recalculating a position they believed was settled. Her hands pressed together once at her waist. I kept my voice level. I said good morning. She said good morning. Her voice was even. Her face was still. Sasha arrived at 10:08. She stopped in the doorway when she saw me standing by the window in the main hall. In the suit, the morning light coming through the tall glass. Her face did something I had not seen it do in a long time. A softening, a release, the way a person looks when they have been bracing for something and it does not arrive. She crossed the room. She said, "Dad." I said, "You look exactly like your mother." Something in my chest clicked into place. Not triumph, not relief. The particular quiet of a thing long, prepared meeting the moment it was prepared for. I offered her my arm. We walked to the ceremony together. The wedding had 94 guests. I was in the front row. I walked Sasha down the aisle at 11 a.m. I shook Brendan's hand at the altar, which I had not been certain I would be able to do with full composure, and I did it with full composure. Elaine Whitmore sat in the second row on the Whitmore side and did not speak to me again that day, which suited both of us. Thomas Crane, 65 years old, and the front door was always as to walk through. The months after the wedding were not dramatic. Sasha called me the following Thursday at 7:23 p.m. She did not mention the contract. She said the day had been beautiful. She said she was glad I had been there. I said I would not have missed it. She said she knew. She said she had always known. We did not discuss Elaine. I put the contract folder back in the second drawer, behind the house deed, where I keep everything I have ever signed. A quiet man with his paperwork in order is a man who has already won the argument. He just has the courtesy to wait until the right morning to make that clear. 31 years of family law, 1 manila folder in a second drawer, and a front door that never required permission to open. Thomas Crane, 65 years old. Front row. If you were in that main hall on October 14th when Elaine Whitmore walked through that entrance and found a father already standing at the window in his suit, if you've ever paid for something and been told you weren't welcome at it, Leave a comment and tell me what you would have done with that contract. And if this story found you today, hit the like button and subscribe to Dad's True Revenge. If you like this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being a part of this sphere.